Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to talk about Dana White's Contender Series Week 3. And my friends, it's going on this Tuesday night, live at the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Once again, we got 10 hungry prospects looking to get a contract. So far in Contender Series, 8 contracts have been awarded. So without further ado,
let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
So first fight of the night in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Jack Duffy, he's 7-0, taking on Nick Piccininni, who's 6-0. And currently they got it Nick Piccininni minus 275. The comeback on Jack Duffy is plus 235. So both guys are grapplers and both go out there and they finish a lot of fights via submission. They're really good at taking the back. They're both really good scramblers. But the interesting thing about it is Nick Piccininni, he's actually a 3-time All-American from Oklahoma State. So if you're familiar with the former UFC welterweight champion Johnny Hendricks, with the UFC Hall of Famer DC, that's where both those guys wrestled. So this guy has 3 All-American plaques that says he can take down his opponent. Will he do it? And, you know, we talked about this the other day on The Ultimate Fighter with that kid Ryan Loader. He also is another one of these guys, D1 background, and should be able to dictate the where the fight takes place. That's exactly what happened. But then you go back a couple weeks and you see the Carl Williams fight when Carl has a clear edge on the mat and he opts to bang with the guy and doesn't shoot a takedown to the 3rd round. Finally gets it when he does. So what I'm trying to say is not, you know, these wrestlers don't always fight how you want them to. So sometimes they'll go out there and bang. It's Contender Series. You need a contract. But man, if Nick fights how he normally does, I mean, like I said, I think both guys are good scramblers, but Nick with that D1 background, 3-time All-American at Oklahoma State, like, let's see you use that, man. But yeah, I like both these guys a lot. I feel like the first fight of the night every week has been incredible. Kavanaugh versus Ho. Last week, we had that kid Cody Haddon versus Billy Brand. That was a great fight. Now we got Jack Duffy and Nick Piccininni, excuse me. But yeah, I liked what I saw from Duffy too, man. I mean, he's a scrambler. He's really good at taking the back, a lot of rear naked chokes. It's just, man, it seems like it's going to be hard to do that against someone like Nick. And also, one thing about Nick, he trains out of Fortis MMA, which is good, but I've seen him dropped in a few of his fights. Now, on one hand, you can be like, maybe it's his chin, you know, maybe his striking ain't that great with the wrestling background, but the striking ain't bad at all. And the guy gets back up and he keeps fighting. So you like to see stuff like that. He recovers really, really well. So you like to see the fact that he's overcome adversity in fights. So the guy seems like a real gamer to me. And if these guys fight like they did on tape, I just think Nick is, you know, better at the exact game that Jack brings to the table. So for that reason, I'm going to go Nick in the first fight of the night. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Malcolm Wellmaker. He's 7-0, taking on Adam Bramhald, who's 13-2. Currently, they got it. Malcolm Wellmaker minus 170. The comeback on Adam Bramhald is plus 145. So, man, this is the fight I've been looking forward to the most on the entire season of Contender Series. And I told y'all already, Malcolm Wellmaker, this is a guy that I've been scouting since he was an amateur. So to see him go from an amateur all the way to an undefeated prospect fighting for a contract on Contender Series, it's truly an amazing thing. So just letting y'all know I'm biased and I'll be rooting for Malcolm here. But I can still break down this fight objectively. When it comes to this dude, Adam Bramhald, I like him actually. He's a scrapper. He's a little bit tall for the weight class. You know, he's 5'10". He's got a bit of that tall man's defense. But I feel like whenever this Bramhald kid gets rocked, that's when he does his best. That's when he kind of locks in, and he's more dangerous when he's rocked. So yeah, there's a lot to like about Bramhald. Tough, aggressive, long, goes for it, well-rounded. On the ground, he's got decent chokes too. So yeah, I'm a fan of this kid. But the issue I had with Bramhald is, you know, you'd think a dude coming from the UK that, man, probably came up on that Cage Warrior scene and he was battle tested like a bunch of these other guys were, but that's not the case. This dude, Bramhald, actually came up in cage steel, which is like the junior promotion to Cage Warriors. It's and a word on the street is that Bramhald actually turned down a few Cage Warriors opportunities, which makes sense because when you see how padded this guy's record is, you know. But I thought he would have done well in Cage Warriors, so I'm actually surprised he turned that down. But then again, who am I to say that when you went the route you went, and now you got this Contender Series call? So clearly, he did things the right way, and he's a lot of fun to watch. But on the other side with Malcolm Wellmaker, man. So let me tell you all the story for those that don't know. So back when I used to commentate for the NFC, the local regional promotion in Atlanta, Georgia, I saw this kid Malcolm Wellmaker fight. And NFC, they didn't tell me like specifically like to only give post-fight interviews to like, the pro fighters or the guys towards like the end of the main card, the main event, the co-main event, the featured bout, stuff like that. But they kind of implied it, right? They were like, don't just give everybody an interview, like make it count, right? And this dude, Malcolm Wellmaker, so this was a amateur kickboxing fight, meaning that he's using big gloves. He's got the headgear on. And this guy's a bantamweight. This guy's a 135er. He's going out there with big gloves and headgear on, and he went up against this dude named Ramondo Scott, who I haven't seen in years, but every time I've had an interaction with Ramondo Scott, it's always been pleasant, really nice guy. But Ramondo was always one of those guys that, they called him King Assassin, and he had a lot of knockout power. But a lot of the guys in MMA, it would always be the thing where it's like, oh, these guys just want to take me down. These guys don't want to bang with me. So Ramondo goes to kickboxing, right? Hey, now no one can take you down. Now these guys are going to bang with you. And he's got this amateur matchup with this kid, Malcolm Wellmaker, who we had never heard about. Headgear, big gloves, like I say. And the reactions that Malcolm Wellmaker got every time he landed on Ramondo Scott. I mean, when's the last time you saw dudes getting dropped, dudes doing the chicken dance, the stanky leg with big gloves and headgear on? That's when I first noticed this kid. And I gave him an interview inside the NFC cage. At that point, right then and there, I was like, say less. I've seen enough. Like, this is a serious prospect. And he keeps competing in his kickboxing career for a little bit. He actually had a match that he lost, but it was a match against Walter McCord, who is like a serious kickboxer. And they went 5 rounds. And this was when Malcolm Wellmaker was super green. So he went 5 rounds with a super high-level kickboxer back when Malcolm was just a kid. Well, he was like 21, 22 or something like that. And it was a 49-46. Obviously it didn't go his way, but like he was so green back then. And he fought a dude who was technically superior. And man, I felt like that was a big turning point for Malcolm, because ever since then, the way he's leveled up, and he's a dude that comes from a gym that the whole camp is basically revolved around Malcolm. Like, it's all just revolved around making Malcolm Wellmaker a world champion. And this dude is so dedicated. Like, I mean, this dude's out here like 1 or 2 a.m. and he'll be running miles. He'll be at the gym. Like, he got a sponsorship with Gold's Gym because he's out there at ridiculous hours putting in work. So, and this guy's got a full-time job being a pipe fitter. And he wants this dream so bad that he chases it at odd hours whenever whenever he can. So this guy's always in the gym. But the thing about Wellmaker, it's all well and good to say, oh, this guy's a hard worker, this guy's this, but how does he fight? Dude, this guy is a show stopper. There's something about Wellmaker, man. I like the way he walks. I like the way he talks. I love the way he fights. This guy is super smooth with his striking. He goes in and out the pocket with a lot of swag, with a lot of athleticism. He's super fast. And once he starts making his reads and he finds the mark, he finds his range, I mean, bodies do hit the floor. This guy's got an insane highlight reel, especially for a bantamweight. He even fought for Jorge Masvidal's Icon fight, and Jorge Masvidal tweeted out, this Wellmaker kid's a future star, which is what I said when I saw this guy as an amateur. So now you see guys like Jorge Masvidal noticing that in Wellmaker's early pro career. So basically the way I think him and Bramhald match up is Bramhald leaves a lot of openings. Like I said, with his tall man defense, he's been rocked in multiple fights, but he's been rocked against jobbers and stuff like that. If those guys can find your chin, I'm very confident Malcolm Wellmaker is going to find this guy's chin. Now, that being said, I mentioned earlier in the breakdown, Bramhald does best when he's rocked. So I either think that Wellmaker is going to knock out Adam Bramhald, or I think he's going to rock him multiple times and have an exciting decision win. But man, with the boss there in the front, I think Wellmaker is he's a showstopper, man. Like, there's something about this kid that sticks out. And, you know, win, lose, or draw, the fact that a kid that I saw as an amateur with headgear on and I scouted and was like, man, like, this guy's going to be something. And now you made it to 7-0 as a pro all the way to Contender Series. Like, I'm proud of this guy no matter what. But it doesn't stop here, man. I really think this guy's going to make waves in the UFC. I think he's going to get a knockout on Tuesday night. I think Dana White's going to be clapping for him. I think Dana White's going to be like, hey, Malcolm, get your ass over here, kid. You're in the UFC. And it's going to be a really special moment for Georgia MMA to see that. So I'm going Malcolm Wellmaker to come out here and starch Adam Bramhald and get a UFC contract. Then next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Marco Tulio, he's 11-1, taking on Matthieu Declose, who's 6-2. Currently, they got it. Marco Tulio minus 425. The comeback on Matthieu Declose is plus 325. I like this fight a lot, man. Marco Tulio, he was actually on Contender Series already, but he won a decision. It was kind of on the boring side, so Dana didn't sign him. But you go back and you watch this guy's regional tape, and he's good, man. Marco Tulio, he comes from shoot to box. So on the feet, he can get a little, you know, take some risks from time to time, which is interesting because that's what Dana criticized him for, was not taking enough risks. But if you actually watch this guy's regional fights, he's throwing flying knees all the time, like to the point where like he'll fall to his back and like lose position and stuff. But like, man, he is good, dude. Like, especially on the ground. On the ground is really where it's at with Marco Tulio. Like, for middleweights, like this guy, like I said, he can bang, but it's different when you're comparing like middleweights as opposed to like the lighter weight classes that train at shoot the box. But this guy can still bang, but man, like on the ground, that's where I think he has a big edge. And this dude, Marco Tulio, look, don't let that 6-2 record fool you. This guy can strike for real. This guy is explosive. This guy is dangerous. And he probably has like a traditional martial arts background with the weird angles that his kicks come from. And man, he is a fun striker to watch. And if you just take a look at his record, because I know it says 6-2, you're like, man, 11-1 versus 6-2. This seems like a mismatch. But you see that Matthieu Declose was knocked out in 2022. But if you actually watch that fight, dude, he was putting a clinic on his opponent. And he actually kind of like twisted his ankle kind of weird early in the fight. But then later on in the fight, he got hit. And he definitely got rocked, but that twisted ankle made it look worse than it was, and it was a bit of an early stoppage. Like, it looked like he was doing the chicken dance all over the place, but really, like, I think the dude was, you know, his ankle was compromised, and it wasn't a good look, but, like, I thought it was a bit of an early stoppage, and he was smoking the guy up until then. His only other loss was a heel hook, which, like, you know, I don't put much stock into stuff like that, and it was in his pro debut. But the standing TKO loss, man, that one was kind of an iffy stoppage, and he was clearly better than that guy. So here, what makes this fight interesting is that on the feet, Marco Tulio, I definitely think he can compete, but like, why even give this guy his win condition? And that's where Matthieu Declose wants to be, and Declose is exciting. And again, with Tulio not getting a contract the first time, maybe he comes out here and wants to bang with Declose, and then he could possibly, I mean, maybe he can land something big on Declose, but Declose can definitely land something big on him. But I really do think the best path to victory for Tulio is getting this fight to the mat. And not that I've seen a big weakness for Declose, but it's obvious and apparent that Declose is a striking specialist. So it'd behoove Tulio to attack him where he's weak. But I'm not really convinced that this should be like the biggest line discrepancy on the card. Don't get me wrong. Tulio is very good, and I think he is UFC caliber. And like, after that Contender Series fight, he bounces back with a big time finish. Like, he killed the dude. He fought. The dude was a can, but he killed it. He treated him accordingly. But man, Declose, like, again, that 6-2 record is kind of deceiving when you watch the tape on him. He's a dangerous dude. So he's a bad boy. So Yeah, I think that Tulio, if he wants to cover his price tag, he's got to get this down to the mat. I'm gonna pick him because I think he's the more well-rounded guy here. He's a big favorite for a reason, but on the feet, this could be very, very interesting. Now, co-main event in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Michael Aswell, he's 9-1, taking on Bogdan Grad, who's 13-2. Currently, they got it Bogdan Grad minus 125. The comeback on Michael Aswell is plus 105. So just like Tulio, this is Bogdan Grad's second time on Contender Series, but unlike Tulio, Bogdan Grad didn't win his fight. In fact, he got smoked in his fight against Tom Nolan. He looked terrible. And I'm going to just keep it a buck with y'all like I always do. I don't know what it is about this Bogdan Grad guy, but I just don't like this guy's face. Like, this guy's got the most hittable face you've ever seen. And I just don't like his fighting style at all, man. Like, I'm not convinced this guy is UFC caliber. Like, you watch that Tom Nolan fight, absolutely gets smoked. Doesn't even have a chance. Looks terrible. Is pulling guard and stuff like that. Then you watch his two subsequent fights. Again, so after the Tom Nolan fight, he fights this Brendan Marino guy, and he wins by flying knee. The flying knee was really nice, but up until the flying knee, dude, he was on his back and couldn't. It was like life alert. It was like, help, I've fallen and can't get back. I can't get up. You know, this guy couldn't get back up from bottom against some random jobber who's now 13-10. And then after that, he got a 1-minute guillotine against another can. You know, I like these finishes, but the fights are super ugly up until then. And then with Michael Aswell, kind of reminds me of like a featherweight Brian Barberena, you know, kind of, which is funny because he's like 23 years old. He's just a kid, but he looks a lot older when he fights in there. He's got stupid volume, and he's one of those dudes that kind of looks like maybe he's a bit chubby, but like he is insanely durable. Like, you're going to have to like hit this guy a million times to get him out of there, but he's going to be stacking volume on you. I think that Bogdan's probably the more physically imposing guy, but I think Michael Aswell is the much tougher guy here. And if Michael Aswell can stay conscious, I think he's going to stack the volume on Bogdan Grad and break this guy and possibly get a finish too. So, yeah, I'm going to go Michael Aswell for the upset here in the co-main event. Now, main event of the evening in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Andrey Pulyaev, who's 8-2, taking on Liam Anderson, who's 6-2. Currently, they got it Liam Anderson minus 200. The comeback on Andrey Pulyaev is plus 170. So the first 2 weeks of Contender Series, I thought that the main events were very deserving of main event slots. I mean, the Mansour Abdul Malik versus Wes Schultz fight, that was a great fight between two prospects. And then obviously that Andreas Gustafsson fight, the finish was great. And the kid just had like kind of that vibe / aura about him where like it seemed like he should be the main event of Contender Series. This one, I'm not sure about. And I'm not one to question Mick or Sean. You know, they usually know exactly what they're doing. But when I watched the tape, I was very unimpressed with both these guys. But maybe Sean and Mick see something in these two that I don't see. But what I gathered was from the Russian, Andrey, so he trains with Andrey Koreshkov, actually, former Bellator champion, you know, very good welterweight fighter. But man, like, I'm not sure if this Andrey dude is good or bad. Like, it's because he's super awkward. And we've noticed with like guys like Dricus, you can be awkward. It can look ugly and you can still make it work. Now, this guy doesn't fight anything like Dricus. He's got a completely different body type. He's tall and skinny, but like it looks super ugly on tape, but he seems to be winning all these fights. And the only guys he's lost to are two absolute studs. You know, the guy that stopped him was 4-0 at the time. Now he's 8-0, an 8-0 Russian. And then the other guy that beat him, also very good, was 8-2 at the time. You know, it was 8-2 versus 3-0. So the two guys that beat him, they're not bad losses at all. But the guys he's been beating are, you know, cans. But the thing about Pulyaev is I'm just not sure if he's that good or not, because it's like so awkward to watch. And then on the other side with Liam Anderson, so the way he fights looks like he has a wrestling background. He's kind of got that wrestler build, but every time I watch his fights, the commentators always mention how he's like this brown belt from 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. He doesn't really fight like a 10th Planet guy. But the thing with Liam is where it's at is on the mat with him. You know, 4 submission wins, but I've seen him dropped in multiple fights, including like a fight or two ago, man. So this guy Liam, like, he's been getting the job done, but man, he is so green, dude. He needs a lot of seasoning. This one is super tough for me to call because I don't know if the Russian is good or not. And then Liam is just extremely green. So, and then where Liam likes to get the fight on the mat, I'm not sure if Andrey truly has a weakness there. The issue I've had with Andrey is like his volume is so low. It looks really ugly when he fights, but like, man, I don't know. It's tough to pick his opponent at like minus 200 when he gets dropped in a lot of fights and he's super green. So I want to take the dog here, but I'm just not confident. It's a really awkward fight. I'm gonna go the Russian here, but yeah, not sure. Now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Contender Series Week 3? Man, I think the fight to watch is actually the middleweight matchup between Marco Tulio and Matthieu Declose. Like, I know this has actually got the widest line on the entire card, but on the feet, I don't think it's going to be that wide. But let's see if Marco Tulio uses that ground advantage. But this Declose guy is a lot better than a 6-2 record indicates, especially standing. So for that reason, Marco Tulio versus Declose is my fight to watch. Who is my fighter to watch, guys? You know exactly who my fighter to watch. My fighter to watch is Malcolm the Machine Wellmaker. Like I said, this guy is a showstopper. This guy stood out, and I've been watching him fight for a long time, been seeing him pay his dues, and to finally see him get this opportunity, I think he's going to make the most of it, man. And he's got a good opponent in front of him who's, you know, experienced, who's well-rounded, who's tough, but it's also a really good matchup on paper for Malcolm to come out here and get one of his show-stopping finishes. So for that reason, Malcolm Wellmaker is my fighter to watch. Well, my friends, we did it. It's going down this Tuesday night live at the Apex Week 3. I want to thank all the fans so much. Please do me a favor, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below. If you feel so inclined to share, I truly appreciate that too. Thank you for all the support. Truly, truly appreciate it. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.